Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this live Facebook Q&A right here on our Facebook page. Of course, tonight we are talking about the hiring process. And as you are watching this evening, please feel free to join us in the chat thread here on Facebook. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them there, and we'll try to get to every single one before we finish up here this evening. My name is Paul Carganilla. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for the Oxnard Police Department. Thank you once again for joining us, and please welcome our hiring sergeant, Sergeant Michael Thomas. Hello, Sergeant Thomas. Good evening. And one of our on our recruitment team, we have several officers, and one of them is currently a school resource officer at Pacifica High School, and he's joining us. It's Officer Alvaro Pulido. Hello, gentlemen, and thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to answer our questions. Let's just get a quick overview this evening, and we do have a third officer who is planning to join us this evening. Officer Alex Nunez. She's actually currently working on a shift. She's on patrol. We're hoping she would be able to join us, and hopefully before the end of the live stream here, we'll be able to get her on to answer any questions or give you all any advice in the hiring process. Now, as I mentioned, Sergeant Thomas is actually in charge of recruitment, and we are currently hiring. Is that correct?
That's right. Paul, we have about 20 to 25 vacancies right now. So we're looking for a lot of good men and women to fill those positions.
And tonight is a really great night to do this because our next written tests are coming up.
Our next written test is on February 25th at Human Resources, but that one is full. The next one after that is going to be March 11th, and that one is not full yet. So if you would like to take the written test, go on Oxnard pd.org, click on join the team on the top right, and there'll be links that will take you to the Human Resources website where you can submit your application. Once you submit your application, they'll contact you for the next written test.
Okay. Well, we're kind of just organically getting it rolling the way I kind of wanted to. I wanted to kind of break down that step-by-step how-to, because a lot of some people chimed in on our Instagram stories and just asked, what do I have to do? And I see it looks like there's a Denise in the chat right now, and she says, what do I have to do to join? That's perfect. But before we dive into that, and as we wait for anyone who might be joining us and just a little bit late in joining us, let's just learn a quick nutshell bit about each of you. And we'll start with Officer Pulido. And I know you were just spotlit on our Sunday Spotlight on the social medias, but remind me, you joined the department in
2008.
2008.
Yes.
And that was after you actually hired on as a traffic service assistant.
That's correct. I applied to be a traffic service assistant. I was hired in March of 2008. 2 months later, I went to the police academy.
That's great. And so it just shows everybody out there, there's a lot of upward movement that can occur once you get a job here at the department. But, maybe somebody out there is thinking about joining, but this wasn't like their first career move. Maybe it's been a few years since they went to school, and you're a great example. I remember you were a banker for about 5 years. Banker.
That's correct.
Not a baker, but a banker.
Not a baker. Yes, I was a banker. Correct.
And you had always wanted to be a police officer or been interested in law enforcement.
That's correct. Yes, I always did. So while I went to college, I was in banking. I was in the banking profession for 5 years. And it was convenient for me because the hours were excellent for a full-time student.
Perfect. And so now that you've been with the department, I can do math. 2008, 14 years?
Coming up, yes.
You've worked a variety of assignments. Well, we can talk about those in just a sec, but we'll jump over to Sergeant Thomas. It's been a few weeks now since you were the Sunday Spotlight, or at least a couple weeks. Remind me, you were hired in
2005.
All right. And how long have you been the hiring sergeant?
About a year and a half now. I got the assignment back in June of 2020, right in the middle of COVID, which is also one of my responsibilities for the department. So it's been a busy season.
And keeping track of COVID, not
Correct.
but you've been the hiring sergeant since mid 2020, but you've been around the Oxnard Police Department for a little bit longer than 2005 as well. When did you first step foot inside the Oxnard Police Department station?
Probably about 1981 or two.
What? How is that possible?
Yeah, my dad was a sergeant before me and retired in 2009. So I've been walking around the same halls of the police department since I was a little kid. I attended Santa Clara Elementary right across the street, and I remember looking at the fence through looking at the police station. And then now I'm at the police station looking across the fence. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. All right, so let's just jump back into this whole question of anybody out there who may be watching who might be interested in joining our Oxnard Police Department family. What is the first step?
There's a couple ways that you could get started. We like you to have a written test done or take one with us. If you'd like to take a written test before you apply, you can do that online with the National Testing Network. Or if you go to nationaltestingnetwork.com or .org, you click on police jobs, then scroll down to Oxnard Police Department, and it'll take you to a online test that you can take that we will accept the same as we'll accept a test taken at our human resources. So if you want to take that test costs about $50 to take. And like I said, we'll accept that. Or you can submit your application and get invited to one of our written tests that are free at our human resources department, which we're holding about once a month.
And let's say we took the test, we passed it. What's next?
So you'll submit your application, you'll take the test, then you'll be invited to our physical agility. During that time, we'll also mail you out what's called a personal history statement, which is your background packet, about a 30-page document that you'll complete. Then we'll go to our physical agility assessment, which consists of running 1 mile in 10 minutes, 15 push-ups, dragging a 160-pound dummy 25 feet, scaling a 6-foot chain link fence, and then sprinting, and an obstacle course. So we have typically held that test out in Camarillo, but we're going to be holding that test in Oxnard coming up here soon. So after you would pass the physical agility, then you'd be invited to the first round of interviews, which would be with a sergeant, a senior officer, and an officer. During the interview, you're going to talk about, your knowledge of the city, your knowledge of the department, why you want to be a police officer, what are some, issues facing police today. So you pass that interview, then you go on to a second interview with myself and my commander. You get through that interview, then you go on to the polygraph examination, which is known as a lie detector test. You pass that, then you start your background process, which can take anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how many different contacts the background investigators need to make with your neighbors, your relatives, your friends, people assessing you about your character. So we dig into your background, your social media as well. So always be cognizant of what you're posting on social media. You pass the background process, then you'll have an interview with our 3 chiefs. Once you pass the interview with our 3 chiefs, you'll go on to a psychological examination, which consists of about 1,000 question, multiple question test and an interview with a psychologist. You get through that, you go to a medical examination, checking your hearing, vision, and overall health. And once you get through that, then you're going to be set to start the academy. So we have what's called a pre-academy that helps prepare you for the academy. So you'll be in that for about 2 weeks before the actual academy starts. Throughout this process, we do emphasize, though, physical fitness because the academy is very physically demanding. And it's much easier to go into the academy being physically fit and not have to worry about that and just having to concentrate on the stress that's put on you and through writing memorandums and marching. So that's kind of the process to get to the academy.
So all of those steps that you just listed, what is the approximate, how long does that take?
So it can be different for different people. Like I said, the background is probably going to be the longest part. We can do it anywhere between 3 to 4 months, sometimes up to 5 months, depending on if the applicant is a lateral and we need to, speak with their agency. Sometimes getting a hold of bigger agencies can be difficult, and just because of COVID restrictions, things can get tied up. So I would say about 3 to 4 months is what we would shoot for.
And right now, it seems like since we are down so many spots, you mentioned there's 25 vacancies. Can you talk a little bit about what we've been doing to just expedite like our regular process?
So we've been trying to schedule things ahead of time. So when you say complete your written test, you're going to have like a physical agility the next week or the following week instead of waiting for multiple weeks, which is one of the reasons we want to bring the physical agility, or we're going to bring it to Oxnard. So we don't have to schedule the field that we use with another agency. We can do it on our own time and when it's available for us. So that's one thing. We've also sped up some of the stuff in the background. And mostly it just comes down to scheduling. There's so many agencies trying to hire people. A lot of us use the same polygraph company and a couple other same companies. So just trying to plan ahead and get everyone scheduled and not waiting until we need to schedule them, scheduling them, far out, anticipating and going to certain steps of the process.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something a little bit earlier, and I wanted to touch on again, and that was this lateral hiring. Of course, right now with us trying to expedite the process and get the spots filled, but of course only hire the best of the best. We, just like so many other agencies in the area and across the country, are looking for police officers who are interested in coming over from another agency. There's a lot of reasons for it, and I know there's a big reason right now, and it's happening in Los Angeles. And so for anyone who is looking to lateral or looking to come over from another agency for whatever reason, what is the best way for them to apply?
The same thing, going online and applying. There's 2 different applications when you apply, one for entry level and one for lateral officer. So we like to grab those lateral officers and try to get them through the process a little quicker, because we're not trying to get to an academy with them. They're already through the academy. And like I said, sometimes the background can be a little bit of a hang up, just getting into their stations to talk to their supervisors. And but on a whole, we like to get through them, through their backgrounds quicker and get them hired faster, because like I said, we're not waiting for an academy for them.
Is there a difference in the process, or is it more difficult for an officer if they were let go from another agency for whatever reason, or not for whatever reason, but for I'll just say it because it's happening. The sheriff's department is laying off a lot of officers right now because of the vaccination situation. Is it easier for an officer to apply if they're still currently working for another agency as opposed to had just left?
Now we're talking about the LA County Sheriffs, not the Ventura County Sheriffs.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
So either way, apply. Every candidate is we're looked at on an individual basis, and so we currently, our city doesn't have a vaccine mandate, so we welcome anybody that wants to apply and come join our team.
All right. I would like to welcome everyone in the chat. If anybody has any questions throughout this conversation, go ahead and drop it in the thread on the live video of Facebook here. I did put out a story on Instagram earlier trying to get questions in advance, and we do have a few of those. So I'll just go ahead and jump to those at this time. I'll just go in order from what I've got here. Sup, it's Ivan on Instagram asks, what classes would you guys recommend taking before applying or during the process?
You want to go first, Al?
Yeah. What classes? Well, you could obviously go to community college, take some English classes. You don't necessarily need to take criminal justice. You'll learn all that in the police academy. I have my degrees in criminal justice, so that definitely helped out in the academy. But definitely take like English classes, writing classes, reading classes. Why? Because you're going to use all that in the academy. You're going to have to write essays. A big part of our job on a daily basis, we're writing reports, typing reports. Take a typing class as well. Learn how to type. That's going to definitely help you out in writing a report. Those are the classes I would recommend: English, reading, writing, typing. All that would benefit you. You don't need to take criminal justice.
Sergeant Thomas, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with Al. Something that I did in my career path is I worked similar to him as a non-sworn employee at the police department beforehand, and I feel like that gave me a pretty good education on radio codes and some of the criminal justice codes and penal codes. And so I would definitely recommend English classes, writing classes, because like Al said, a lot of our job is report writing, and that can be a big stumbling block for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, criminal justice, if you want to do it, it's fine, but I think you're going to get a lot of it in the academy, and even you get credit for it in the academy. So
all right. The next one up is from, based on the question, I won't read the name of who asked it, but if an issue, undisclosed, comes up in our background, how can we go about correcting it?
I mean, that's a pretty vague question. I can tell you, everybody has something in their background, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't prohibit you from being a police officer just because you have something in your background. Like I said before, we look at every officer on an individual basis, and their work history, their work ethic, their finances. Are they being responsible? We look for character traits that would cross over to a police officer in your personal life. So, are you paying your bills on time? Are you showing up to work on time? So there's not just one thing that we would exclude somebody for, generally in their background, short of getting arrested and committing some type of felonious crime. So right now, we send people to the academy 4 times a year. The first academy begins in January, which is in Huntington Beach at Golden West College. So you'd be living down in Huntington Beach for the 6-month duration of the academy, which is paid for by the city. The second academy starts in April, which is one we currently have people in process for. That one is at the Ventura County Sheriff's Academy out at the Camarillo Airport. The third academy is July, which is again back to Huntington Beach at Golden West. And then once we get to October, the fourth one is back at the Sheriff's Department at the Camarillo Airport. So we have a couple different ones that we send people to. If there's some extreme hardship and you're in the process for a Huntington Beach one, there's a potential that we could hold you to the next one. But just like your backgrounds, everybody's on an individual basis. We look at them and work with them and do our best to accommodate them to get them here.
And the next question from Jesse is, does it matter where and what area we live in to be considered as a candidate?
Absolutely not. We take candidates from all across the country. Obviously, if you're going to be working here, having knowledge of the city of Oxnard is helpful. One of the rating categories when you're in field training is knowledge of the city. So if you're able to navigate around the city and find it going quicker, that's going to be more helpful to you. It is definitely not the only, it's definitely not, it's not a requirement. So we have plenty of officers from all over Southern California and actually all over, different states throughout the country.
All right. Jose asks, I completed the PFQ packet and didn't hear back. How long until I can reapply?
So the PHQ, I think what he's referring to, the personal history questionnaire. You'll hear back usually within a week whether you pass that part of the process. After the personal history statement is turned in as a physical agility, and we schedule those every few weeks to at least at the most once a month. So you should be hearing back fairly quickly. And if you haven't heard back yet, send me an email at michael.thomas at oxnardpd.org, or give me a call at 805-385-8300, and I'll find out what's going on.
And we touched on this a little bit earlier when we said that Officer Pulido spent some time in another career before coming over, but one of the questions asked here by, it looks like Chris, I'm sorry, no, it's Yahira asks, what's the oldest you'll hire?
We don't have a limit. It's whether you can, do the job. So we've had people have done full military careers, 20-year careers, and been hired, at 50 years old before. So the youngest that you can apply at the city is 21 at the time of application. So like some other departments, I believe, we do not have an age requirement, whether that be or you have to be at least 21, but as far as an age limit, we don't have one. As long as you can do the job, get through the academy, make good decisions, you can do it.
Great. And it looks like the last one we had here in advance was, what is the salary rate?
So the salary rate starting in the academy is $34.93. We just raised that from $28 last year. So people attending the academy in the last session got, a pretty decent raise in the academy. And that's just to raise us to be competitive with the other agencies. We are not the top, but we're definitely not the bottom. We're near the top now as far as entry-level pay. I know when I started in 2005, I was making $17 an hour. I'm sure, Al, you were somewhere close to that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So $34.93 is a pretty big jump from back then. But the salary range starts at like I said, $34.93 and goes all the way to $44.80 an hour at the top step of a patrol officer. That's not being promoted to senior or sergeant. And that equates to $72,000 to about $93,000 a year, without overtime and without any other ad pays that we have. We have lots of different ad pays, whether it's if you have an education, if you have your bachelor's degree, you're eligible for 10% more pay. If you're bilingual, you're eligible for a percentage pay. If you work night shift, you're eligible for a 5% pay. If you work in detectives, you're eligible for 5% additional pay. So all that added up, working overtime, you can make a very decent living being a police officer.
All right. And if anybody has any questions, any further questions for Sergeant Thomas, we'll put his contact info in the description of this video. His email is, of course, michael.thomas at oxnardpd.org. And his phone number I don't have memorized, but I'm pretty sure it's 805-385-8300. 8300. My last question to you both before we say goodnight is, I'll start with Al. Officer Pulido, if you had any words of advice for someone out there who is thinking about a career with the Oxnard Police Department, any words of wisdom from your days and your experience, what might those be?
Stay determined. If you want a career in law enforcement, it's well worth it at the end. I highly recommend it. There might be some bumps on the road, passing the test, what have you. You just have to be patient. Okay, be patient, and you have to really want it. And those people who really want it are usually the ones who get into the academy. And once you're in the academy, it's something totally different. Okay. Some people break down and they don't want to continue anymore. You just have to want it more than anyone else, and prepare before going to the academy. Don't think it's going to be easy. It's going to be very challenging. But just don't let others influence you or cause you to decide, what, this career isn't for me. I didn't pass the test, or what, I don't have the background for it, or I don't have the education. Apply. I encourage everyone to apply. You really don't know. Once you meet officers, you'll see that there's officers from all walks of life. That came from different careers, own their own business, different types of degrees. They came from different states. We even have some people that were born in other countries as well. So definitely stay motivated and apply.
Thank you. And Sergeant Thomas, any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would say, if you're younger and you're not, you're still in high school in that area, try and find a job that, you can get some customer service experience in, because that's what we're doing as police officers every day, serving the community. So find something. And for me, I worked at a grocery store for 4 years prior to being a police officer, and I learned a lot, interacting with people. And so I think that was very helpful. Like Al said, you have to be very determined and you can't give up. I applied at 5 different agencies, even failed the written test at Oxnard the first time that I took it. So you really gotta want to do it, because when you're in the academy and you're standing there and it's raining and someone's yelling at you to do push-ups, you really gotta want to be a police officer to get through that. So you gotta have that perseverance, and you just gotta have that drive to want to do it. And part of that, like I said before or early on, is having the physical fitness to help you get through that, because there's going to be sleepless nights. There's going to be a lot of strain on you in the academy. So work on your customer service, work on your physical fitness, stay determined, don't give up. There's tons of stories of people that have applied at multiple agencies and for whatever reason didn't pass a certain part of the process. They had a bad day. So don't give up and see it through to the end.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you both for joining us this evening. Again, we'll put Sergeant Thomas's contact info in the description of this video. And if you're watching a replay of this video, feel free to ask any questions in the comments, and we'll make sure that either myself or Sergeant Thomas can get those answers to you right in the Facebook comments. But thank you once again, Sergeant Thomas, Officer Pulido. It was a pleasure. And to everybody out there, we hope, if you aspire to become an officer with the Oxnard Police Department, we hope to hear from you very soon. Have a good night.
Good night.